Howdy, it is I, Junk. I know it's been a minute since I did one of these. I'm still visiting family, so it's kind of hard when you're waiting people to go to bed. I'll be heading back to DC next week, I think. Anyway, I thought I would do a little intro discussing this last game. I set a new damage record for myself, which is not as high as you might think it is, because as you know, if you've been watching me, I like tanks and I like to build things in a tanky way. In fact, I think of these, of the 5 bots we're looking at, there are exactly 3 nuke amps and 2 of them are on the Behemoth. I think I put one on the Spear Khepri. Yeah. But I don't think there's any other nuke amps in this hangar. Yeah. So I like tanky bots, so my damage is not ordinarily particularly high. What's surprising, I guess, is I use 2 robots in the game. I use the Pursuer and the Spear Khepri. No sympathy for the Reds on that, because I saw at least, I want to say 4 Spear Khepris on the red side. So it's interesting that after all this time, my damage record would be set with a grand total of 7 light weapons. But the Pursuer was not ornamental. The Pursuer was in there most of the time. It was over 5 minutes, just slightly over 5 minutes. I was in the Pursuer. Let's take a quick look at the Pursuer build. Certainly informed by my earlier attempts to build a Pursuer, and when I posted on the forum, Basic Breakfast was like, you didn't take the best skill, which is the Deaf Survivor, which it is the best skill. But it isn't a dramatically different build than the other kind of auto builds. Ferocious Guardian, I think, is a Pursuer, is a skill the Pursuer has that the Khepri doesn't have available. The Pursuer with the Spear is very effective, and I think it might even be fairly effective after the nerf. And I do want to talk about the nerfs and buffs on the test server for a minute, but let's, I guess, finish talking about the Pursuer. I think part of what makes the Pursuer work is that it's a Pursuer. And as somebody who tends to run older bots, you get different reactions from people, but if it's not a really, really old bot, like when you're in like a Destrier or a Boa, people will chase you down just to see what it is. When you're in something they recognize, like a Pursuer, I think a lot of people in Champion League recognize Pursuers. They'll deprioritize you, and they won't necessarily chase you down. So if you're by yourself, yes, they'll run you down, and at some point you're going to be by yourself if you're playing Pursuer, because you're going to be chasing people down in theory. But if you're in a crowd and you're out there with like a Khepri or an Angler or Behemoth, looking at the robots here, or almost anything, right? Like if you're anything meta, they're going to prioritize the meta stuff over you, and they're going to say, well, it's 3 light weapon slots. Even though, at the end of the day, especially if those weapons are spears right now, pre-nerf, that's going to chew people up pretty badly. So you get like a little survivability boost, weirdly enough, by using something like a Pursuer. Whereas I think if I had been in the Khepri from the start, they'd have hunted me down with much greater passion than they did. And I mean, part of the thing about the Pursuer also is you've got a pretty good ability to create distance. Not always. Like I think an Angler and its ability might be fast enough to run you down if you aren't just turning and booking it, which you're generally not. At least I'm generally not. But other than the Angler and its ability, chasing you is going to have some diminishing returns because you can just maintain that distance until you run into somebody shooting you from behind. So I think even post-nerf, yeah, you'll do less damage in the Pursuer, but the Pursuer will still be viable, and the Pursuer will still be putting up good numbers and having good survivability. It might be better as like a 3rd or 4th drop kind of thing, because this is always the debate, right? Do you drop your beacon runners early or late? And there's obviously good arguments for both, but I think maybe with the lower damage after the nerf, it might be better in that role. So let's talk a minute about the test server, because I've been hearing a lot of I've watched the AD gaming video. I've tried to find the original forum posts on it. There's kind of 3 layers to what's going on. Obviously, the big one is the spear nerf, and they're trying different things. They changed the reload from 0.6 seconds to 1.1 second. That's decent. With Otto, it still shaves it down to a pretty impressive amount. So somewhere I did the math, but it's still with Otto, it's still a slight improvement on the decay. Put an asterisk there, because they added a second nerf on the test server just before it closed, where they had the third shot do less damage. Because right now with the spear, the third shot does 400% damage, and they didn't say what they took it down to, but they nerfed that third shot. One of the complaints that people have made, which I agree with actually, is that unlike the decay class weapons, right? I guess Blight is what we'd be comparing it to in the light slot. Unlike the Blight, where there's a defined 3-shot cycle, you actually can't predict the third shot of the spear because it's just shooting constantly. And that makes it a little trickier to counterplay. Since there's no cadence to the shooting, you can't figure out when to dodge out from cover. So it actually might... One very minor nerf that might actually be very useful is keep the 0.6 reload time in... Well, I guess no, don't keep the 0.6 reload time. Increase the reload time to like 2 seconds, but group the shots together closer so that you can actually tell, okay, that's the third shot. I don't want to get hit. Not that I think we're out here, in like the Matrix dodging energy weapons, but psychologically it would certainly help for people who want to do that. I guess I should also, since we haven't looked at it before... Well, I'll come back to it. Let's stay on the test server for a minute. So that's one thing. Obviously, what happens with the spear? And I've responded to a comment about this. I don't think the spear is the main problem, believe it or not. I still think the Khepri nerf was never strong enough. That's the main problem. The Khepri is still, from my perspective, a broken robot. It's a tank that's also like a top-level support. So it's doing those 2 roles. Now, the spear breaks it by also making it a top-level assault robot. So it's doing every role all the time, which is what you want to avoid in a team game. If everyone can do everything with themselves, what's the point of team play? Now, it's great for highlights, because you can really turn a game upside down when you drop your Khepri. And it's incredibly satisfying to do that when everyone else dropped their Khepri early, and now they have to, the shoe's on the other foot. But it exacerbates any imbalance in the light weapon slot, which is also kind of related to the Behemoth topic. Because one of the other things, which let's talk about the Ardent Behemoth here, because there were nerfs on the test server, because I think the test server is closed now, for both the Avalanche and the Behemoth, and they tried different things at different times, is what I'm reading on the forum. I don't play on the test server, but I read the forum posts of the people who do. And the nerf that AD Gaming is reporting, that I guess was up for most of the time, was a 15% nerf to Avalanche damage. But at another point, it sounds like they were testing keeping the damage the same, but changing the reload to 10 seconds for a full reload, up from 6 seconds. People were asking me, do I think that's going to kill the Avalanche? Like either one of those. And no is the short answer right now, because the big thing right now is the radius. And I don't think the only or even primary value of the radius is going through purple shields. I think that's great. But there's a lot of people out here who are saying, well, when the purple shields get nerfed, because when the drone rework drops, it's not going to matter that you can shoot through those shields. And there's a couple reasons why I think that's not true. Here's the big one. Just having played a lot of Avalanche Behemoth at this point, I don't think shooting through the purple shields is the primary upside of the Avalanche. I think the primary upside is shooting into crowds and taking out people altogether, shooting against a wall and taking out the angler that's blinded you, shooting at the pillar the harpy is hiding behind and hitting the harpy, when it's not in the air. Those are the things that the Avalanche brings to the game, that brings to Champion League. I don't think a 15% damage buff, or sorry, 15% damage nerf, not buff. I don't think a 15% damage nerf changes that utility. It's certainly, you got to take a little bit longer to do it, but I still think that's a pretty incredible ability. I uploaded a short the other day being yesterday, I think, where I was on the lower level of the center moon beacon, and there were two reds on the upper level, and I took them both out with one avalanche volley because it was big enough to hit them both and go through the floor. I don't care if my reload is 4 seconds longer, and I don't care if my damage is 15% less. That's a heck of a thing you can add to your hanger's abilities that just isn't replicated anywhere else right now to that degree. I know there's other explosive rockets, but just not to that degree. Sometimes I find it useful to think of robots and the robot building system here as like a rock paper scissors thing. And you've experienced this, right? Especially if you're playing Beacon Rush, you're fighting on a beacon that the red team has, and you take out whatever robot was there, and just before the beacon flips, they drop another robot in. That's the perfect counter to the robot you're in. There's that rock, paper, scissors aspect to war robots. And the Avalanche Behemoth is like the Lizard or Spock of that rock, paper, scissors, where it's doing something so different than what other robots are doing right now that it kind of forces the envelope of what's acceptable within the rock, paper, scissors to widen, and forces people to play differently. And I know that I've experienced this, but like the presence of an Avalanche Behemoth, first of all, the presence of any Behemoth on the field forces you to play differently depending on what the loadout is. But the presence of the Avalanche Behemoth, there's a lot of robots right now that rely on cover, like the nether between its ability charges, for example. Obviously, the weather chickens, my most hated robots of all time. Even the angler, it's not the toughest tank when it's out of its ability if you're not blinded. I don't think anyone would be confused that if you if you had a consistent EMP on an angler and a consistent EMP on a Revenant, let's say, and the Revenant ability is really good and gives you great damage resistance and stuff, even after its nerf. But I don't think anyone's confused that the Revenant would just eat the angler, because the angler's ability is sort of intrinsic to its tanky nature. The point being able to shoot people who are in some form of cover is going to change where they think they can get cover, and that's important. That's an important element in gameplay. So I don't think either a 15% damage nerf or a 4% reload increase is going to kill the Avalanche Behemoth. Also, I want to say that I haven't been able to confirm this anywhere, but one person commented that they're looking at nerfing the HP on the Behemoth, which is just dumb. It's a big sitting target, so I think that nerfing the HP on the Behemoth would be a huge mistake. Also, looking at nerfing a bot, when you have the Spear Khepri out there, and you nerf the Spear but not the Khepri, and you have the Avalanche Behemoth, and you nerf the Behemoth and the Avalanche, that's just dumb. I mean, that's the kind of thing you can do if you're a developer who's never played the game. Because if you actually played the game and you've seen the Khepri up close, you know the Khepri still needs a nerf. It's still broken. It should not be as tough as it is. It's not as bad as it was before the original nerf, but it's not in balance with other robots at all. The Khepri is still way too tough. Also, I don't think I'm the only one who feels this way, because there's very few people who actually play it. The Nether still needs I don't want to say a buff, because that may be underestimating it. It needs its entire HP and shield combo reconsidered from the ground up, because it is too fragile to be useful as a robot. I mean, I see people play it, like, there's top players who will throw one in their hangar. I mean, I tried the other day, And is it useless? I mean, it's not useless. It's better than no robot, but I would take a pursuer over it any day. And that's supposed to be your new hotness for this patch, is a robot that, you know, a pursuer regularly eats for breakfast. Make some changes. So I'm thinking, what are the other changes? Supposedly, the Pantheon bots, right, which is, what is it, Hades, Ares, and Nemesis, are going to get their speed back in their ability. Like, right now there's a speed nerf in their ability, and they're going to remove that. I mean, I guess it's good. The reload on the homing machine guns going up is maybe useful to that, where the homing machine gun reload is going to go up to 18 seconds from, I think, 13. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's going to change anything. Homing machine guns are most annoying when they're on a Siren or Harpy, and the Siren or Harpy is just going to camp till the thing's reloaded and jump up again. So I just don't... Like, the problem with the homing machine guns is the Siren... It's kind of like the Spear Khepri, where they're looking at this and they're saying, oh, the Spear is the main problem. Not really. The Khepri is the main problem. I mean, the Spear's broken. It needs a nerf. But the Khepri is why that weapon is so broken. And I think the same thing is true of the homing machine guns and the Harpy and Siren. It's a thing that camps till it jumps up and shoots through shields while it's got a reflector up. That's what's making the homing so terrible, is that it's in cover and then it's shooting you while you're in cover. Like, changing the reload is just... It'll make them wait longer to get you, but they'll still get you. So, with the Pantheon robots... Okay, that Harpy has to wait another 4 seconds before it flies up, shoots you through your your Ares shield, and kills you. It's not going to change the dynamic at all. It all goes back to, I don't think the developers play the game. If you played the game, you couldn't look at that situation and say, nerfing the homing machine gun is going to change this dynamic. You need to change the pilot. You need to change the robots. Like, that's the problem. The homing machine gun is actually fine on almost every other robot. Yes, I mean, the Smooth Behemoth is a lot. Don't get me wrong. But are you hiding from Smooth Behemoths when you see them? I'm really not anymore. I mean, I think yesterday I had a clip where I just ran up to one in the pursuer and just stood there and shot it. And it died. Like... I'm not, and I've run a lot of Smooth Behemoth over the years. I mean, like, I run a lot of Behemoths in general, and I've run a lot of Smooth Behemoth. And I just kind of stopped because it was almost never the best loadout for the situation. And it was not that hard for people to kill it. Because even, with the existing reload, you would be dry firing a lot. Like, the idea that a longer reload... Like, they're trying to balance this weapon around the broken weather chicken rather than balancing it around the game. And I worry they're looking at the Avalanche that way. Okay, anyway, enough about that. The third thing about this test server is... Apparently, there's just going to be weapon buffs by tier. Let me open up on my laptop here the original post. It's a balance update post. And this is from Nexus Blade on the forum, so shout out to Nexus Blade. All T2 weapons are getting a 10% damage buff. Most T3 weapons are getting a 20% damage buff, with some getting more, such as Glory getting a 30% buff and its firing rate matching Corona's. Shock Train's getting a 45% damage increase, and some T4 weapons getting a 30% damage increase, such as EMG Sonics, Cryogenic Rockets, Blast Rockets, Cryo Tasers. Cryo Tasers, I think, are Frutals. I think that's like the Hell weapons, right? Am I misremembering that? I think that's all awesome. And, Inquisitor, Mercury, and Spectre got their stealth buffed. And I don't think it's going to change a whole lot. Maybe a little bit. A couple more seconds of stealth is good. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I'm kind of agnostic about all this because I've got most of these weapons and robots maxed. I know I have all the robots we've talked about maxed. Yeah, I mean, I was here for the cryo taser meta, so I've got lots of those all maxed. I've got plenty of Sonics, so my interest isn't in like any build that I've invested in or not invested in, because I invested in all of them. My interest is in game balance and what allows the most interesting variety of gameplay. I love the idea that all weapons should be viable, and I'm hoping that's what Pixonic is trying to evolve towards. I wish they did that from an understanding of playing the game and not from staring at spreadsheets. Because the idea that the Avalanche Behemoth is getting a nerf stronger than the one that's coming to the Spear Khepri is really troubling. I mean, it really suggests their heart is in the right place, but they really don't know what the game is about. Like, I've complained about this before. This is a recurring problem with Pixonic, is that they think the game can be reduced to damage numbers, and it just can't. Like, the actual game is not a series of stats. As we say about other sporting events, there's a reason why they play the games. If you could reduce games to their stats, you didn't have to play them, because you would know numerically which one would come out on top. But you just can't. And the same thing is true here. Like, how something feels, how something plays matters a lot. And the idea that I'm sure they're seeing a lot of Avalanche Behemoths and people doing a lot of damage with them, that's not the problem with the game right now. I'm not saying don't nerf them. I'm saying if you're nerfing them harder than the Khepri, you're not really understanding what's happening on the ground. Anyway, let's get into this gameplay. Okay, we're gonna drop into Dead City here, which is not. I don't dislike it as a map, but it's not my favorite map. What I resent about Dead City is that they keep promising, we're going to put Yamantau back. And they're like, but look, rather than work on that, we gave you more moss in Dead City. Who wanted moss in Dead City? Who was out here being like, I wish this map was more green? And also, isn't it Dead City? Why is there moss in it? Because, moss is alive. If you kill it, it stops being green. So they went back to add moss to a city that's supposed to be dead. Do you know what Dead City means, or do you know what moss is? I don't understand. Like, what part of it is confusing to you? Alright, so you can see this is going to be the pattern for the Pursuer, where, like, I'm sort of hanging back a little bit, and I think people are looking and thinking, it's like, well, it's not really worth me chasing it down, I got bigger problems up here. Like, we should deal with the Angler before we deal with the Pursuer? But that just means I'm just going to be shooting at you from cover for a long time, or from sort of half cover, like where I am now. And that's the first of a whole bunch of Spear Khepris that I ran into here. Just looking around, because sometimes you just gotta look around. Believe me, if things seem too quiet. Now looking at the beacon bar now, I'm thinking, I'm seeing hotshotters, right? Like, they're coming out really, really hard, and that is probably a mistake. I mean, I know it's a mistake. I know how the game ends, because I'm recording this after, but like... But I'm thinking, at this point, alright, they're pressing really hard, and I'm seeing a lot of Spear Khepris, but I wonder... I mean, I know I've got a Spear Khepri. I wonder how many of my teammates are holding off. Yeah, I was surprised at this part that the ball didn't more aggressively try to clear the beacon. Like, it just sort of... It's just a mascot, and it's not using a whiteout. Like, if it had a whiteout drone, I could say, okay, well, I get it. It's just sort of trying to EMP us and be helpful. It was using a nebula. So if it's not shooting and it's not pushing, it's doing nothing. It's just ornamental. So it was just hanging out there in case we decided to leave. Both of us decided to leave. A little optimistic. I mean, this is Champion League, so... We're probably not just going to walk off a beacon, both of us. Oh... It felt so good to defend a behemoth. As somebody who's gotten destroyed in his behemoth with no team support, anytime I can stop someone from destroying a behemoth, I'm there for it. So here we go, number 2. It looks like this is a partial spear Khepri. I'm seeing like, well, I can't see anything now because they're getting shot so much, but I saw like at least a couple spears, but I think I saw a shotgun in there. I don't mind. I'm not mad at the hybrid builds because I posted a short yesterday where I showed that I try to sell down my components after events or towards the end of events. In the time it took me to get 7 spears, I got 33 blights that I didn't need. So I should probably actually start, since I buy enough boxes, working out drop rates for people, but a lot. And somebody was like, well, by that you probably spent $3,000. So I probably spent more than that, brother. I hate to tell you. I am not the smartest man in the world, but I'm not the poorest, and that's not nothing. All right, now I'm looking at this map and I'm thinking, all right, we clearly need to get a beacon. They're going to beat us on beacon bar if we don't start pushing back. And I'm just thinking, I've been in this Pursuer for an awfully long time. I mean, Pursuer is not the world's sturdiest robot. I do have 2 repair amps on it, but it's not like hard to kill a Pursuer, right? Like, they're meant to get in and like take the element of surprise and stealth to get their kills, not to sit here in sustained firefights. So I'm thinking, I'm just gonna try. I gotta pick a beacon. I can either pick their home, or I can pick center. So it's like, maybe if I can help my teammate over here. But I'm also sort of not committing, because I'm seeing his health going down. I'm thinking, I don't necessarily want to, especially since he was getting shot from the left too. I don't necessarily want to be getting in a sustained one-on-one fight with a Revenant. Of all the robots a Pursuer can run in and take out, I don't think Revenant's anywhere near the top of that list. So ultimately, I say, okay, let's do center, because I gotta go for a beacon. Let's do center. Start walking over there, and of course, what should happen to drop but Spear Khepri? Let's call it 2.5, because the other one was hybrid. So, and Lord knows you couldn't let a Spear Khepri take out a Pursuer on his own, so you gotta get a little support from his big brother here. I've accepted my inevitable fate at this point. I'm just trying to get some extra damage in before they take me out. And this is one of those things where the temptation here is to drop in on the beacon and try to defend it. Okay, you're not defending a beacon from a Luchador, a Spear, Khepri, and a Revenant. So that would be a bad instinct. Find somewhere else to be. And so I drop in at a one-on-one fight that turns into a 3-on-1 fight without my realizing. And now it's a 3-on-1 the other way. So that was just suppressing the instinct to try to defend the beacon you're on and look at the bigger game and say, like, dropping in here would just be suicide. Let's find another place to be. And I thought this guy was going to go back towards... I'm a little turned around, but what I think is our home beacon. And didn't... he was sort of... He had better situational awareness. I don't know why I assumed he was going to just rush a beacon mindlessly. But he saw we were coming and he decided to meet us. But now I'm the Spear Khepri. It's like, look at me. Look at me. I'm the Spear Khepri captain now. And I'm looking at the beacon bar and I'm thinking, let's just find an open beacon and grab it. This is one of those times where we need beacons so badly that if there's a way to work out negative space where we don't see somebody, let's go to where we don't see somebody. Now that does not stay that way for very long. But I saw, okay, well, it's an open beacon. Let's try it. This Revenant, I'm guessing, either wasn't maxed or there was somebody shooting him from the other side too, because even 4 spears in the face shouldn't melt you like that. Getting good team support on this Luchador. And I thought for sure I would get taken out by there's the Aethers shooting at me here, but there was also like a Mirrormit somewhere. I thought I would get taken out by them on sea, and then over here, I guess this beacon was getting flipped before I got here. I've watched it back to try to figure out, was somebody like a ghost on our team flipping beacons or something? I don't see that. Maybe I missed it. And here we get to my favorite part of the game. I might clip this as a short if I can. But this long sustained fight for a beacon. There was the only beacon, so I knew somebody was going to drop in. So we get a Revenant first. Okay. Revenant doesn't seem to be super tanky. I mean, he's certainly more tanky than the one on center. But I'm feeling alright. I can, he's going to heal up, but I can grind his health pretty quickly. It seems like. So I'm not concerned about this Revenant. I'm concerned because I don't see what's shooting me from the right yet, and turns out this Ravana, I've had the shoe on the other foot here. I've been in the Ravana trying to take out the Spear Khepri. It's tough because you're guessing. There's no good time to unphase against the Spear Khepri because it's shooting at you constantly. So he's playing it very well. He's like, trying to, and he's from a top clan, so of course he is. But that corner shooting works both ways, and my shots around the corner hurt more than his shots around the corner. So we have this hybrid puncher Avalanche Behemoth. I get it. I don't know that I would have used the build, but I understand the idea that it gives you... It's a disincentive to rushing you, in part. That's greater than your Avalanches can provide. And this was just cat and mouse of how exposed does he want to be in order to get his shots off versus trying to grind me down slowly. Ultimately, he chose too exposed. So now I'm looking at the beacon bars again, and I'm thinking, this might not actually even be winnable right now unless we mech them. But I shouldn't say never, but I very rarely say, let's have the strategy of meching them, because somebody might just have not dropped yet. Like, there may be a third player out here, yeah, there you go, see? They were just, like, waiting or something, I don't know what. I didn't remember that they'd come out that hard, but I was like, don't plan on meching people, because that's just, you don't know who hasn't dropped yet. There's that dirty area of, like, you're trying to count 6 robots and 6 people, and you're going to lose track, so don't plan on meching. But here we are, and I'm thinking, it's nice that we have all the beacons, but in 34 seconds, is there even enough time to run out? So this seems to be the one beacon that's contested, so let's just fly over here and try to contest the beacon. And sure enough, in the last couple seconds, there was enough time there. Now, I figured, okay, I thought I had a good game. I thought I did okay there. But, yeah, new damage record for me, which isn't that high, and I feel like I've gotten to this number before, but in my profile, it says now my top damage before was like 8 million, and now it says my top damage is like 11 million, so I guess that's a new record. I was like heavy doing menders. There was a healing hanger for a while too, which is it's easier to get scoreboard points healing because but few people are trying to avoid being healed. But yeah, so that's that game. Thank you for watching it. Thank you for listening to me drone on about test server stuff. If you're a dog or a cat left home alone by your parents, you're a good kitty or puppy. I'm sure you'll get some pets when they come back. And we'll talk to you soon. Later.